Hilchas Yibum v'chalitza yesh b'chlolon sholish mitzvahs. Shtei mitzvahs asay u'mitzvah achas leisasa. V'zeu proton. Aleph, liyabim. Beis, lachleitz. And Gimel, shelitinose liyavama li'ish zor at shetose rishus hayav mi'olah. V'isha shiruya libom nekraz kuka libom. Rishus hayavam nekraz zika. Ubir mitzvasele beprokamele pere Krishna. Mitzvahs asemen atera sheyabim odom eshes ochiv mi'oviv beimen hanesuyin beimen ha'eresin and mezbelizera. Someone has a brother that they share the same father. Not if they share the same mother, if they share the same father, and the brother dies without children. So the brother dies without children, and he was married, whether it was nesuyin or eresin. So there's a chiyuv of yibum. Shenamar ubein ein loy is yivama yavi Allah. There's no need for kedushin. So although normally there's kivash nitna teira, so there's a chiyuv liknes. You have to be koine her b'fnei edim before nisuyin. But nevertheless, over here there's no need of a kinyan because she's already hikno le min hashamayim. You don't have to do a ma'isa kinyan minatera. Midrabanan there'll be a din maimer which you do a ma'isa kinyan. So minatera you don't have to be mekadesh. So there's no chi of ksuba on the yavam. The ksuba is the hamshach of the ksuba that she had on her first husband, and the yavam yarshins the nechosim of her husband, of his brother, that he's being miyabim his wife, and those nechosim are meshubah to her ksuba. If lepel there is no ksuba, so then he has to commit himself. He has to write a new ksuba. And then that ksuba is going to be on his nechosim. But if there was a ksuba, so then that ksuba is on nichsi of achiv shemes. Now the Rambam doesn't mention anything about edim, that you have to have edim. In other words, when the yavam is bala, there's no din of edim. There doesn't have to be a the pastus advarim is because the ma'aseh kinyan there is already hiknu leiman hashemayim, and there's a mitzvah to make yibum. And through the mitzvahs yibum, she becomes ishte gemura. But you don't need edim, and that's the pastus advar. And that's how the Reb Chaim explains in Sefer that the whole gather of edi kiyum is only a din in ma'aseh kinyan and a din in das. Mashenkin over here, the din by a yavam is a person of a yavam was bal yevimte, even if he bal ba'onis, as long as he had kavana livei. And as lapel, he's kindness. You don't need das likeness over here, not mitzad the baal, not mitzad the man, and the yavam, not mitzad the yavama. There's no din of das. There's no din of das. There's no din of edikium. That's the shluchur shittas Rambam. Masha'inkein the others. There's the riyaz. They bring the riyaz in shilti agiberim. In yavamas, the shilti agiberim brings a riyaz in Yavamas that says no, that you do need edim b'shas yibum. Yibum needs edim, and he also agrees that it's not a kinyan that needs das. That's a pashto zach. It's clear that it's a din that yibum is koine even without das liknes. Nevertheless, he holds that you need edim b'shas yibum. So it means obviously he holds that the gather of edi kiyum has not a din in das. That's a different gather, the gather of edikum. But I'll call upon it's clear that according to the Rambam, you don't need edim. The Chur is very clear that according to the Rambam, you don't need edim b'shas yibum. Yeah. Halacha beis lei rotza liyabim, eish li rotza sehi. She doesn't want to have yibum. Is hareza chelitzlo. So he makes chalitza. V'achar kach tia muteres li nosi la'acher. Mitzvahs asay menatera lachlitz im leirotz liyabim shenamar v'chol tzonali v'gemer. Mitzvahs yibum kidam is mitzvahs chalitza. They say lechatchila you should do yibum, but if he doesn't do yibum, so then there's a mitzvahs asay to do chalitza. Now the ma'aseh is there's two pratim over here. There's one din. It says if he doesn't want to make yibum or she doesn't want to make yibum, so memela is hareza choylitzla. He has to do chalitza. So the mashmois advarim is that she could man chalitza. No, he has to do chalitza because she could man chalitza. She's kuka to him, and she doesn't want to have yibum. She could man chalitza. So the Magen Mishnah writes later. The Rambam said earlier that l'mashal, if you have an arusa and she tainas, she doesn't want to have nesuim because meisa. The The husband is Mo'asola. So Mamela, she doesn't want to have Nisuin. So the Rambam said that she could mana get. She could mana get. No, that she's not mechuyev, even though she committed herself to Erison. But now she could say that she doesn't want. She wants a get, and that's her right, and he has to give her a get. Mashenk and the Ramban's sheet is not like that. The Ramban's sheet is that she can't mana get, even she tainas misa alei, since she's an arusa. So Mamela shehika taina nesuin, and he's not mechuyev to give a get. That's the sheet as Ramban, that he's not mechuyev to give a get. So the Maggid Mishnah says that this Rambam over here is l'shitase. So says the same Rambam that holds that she could mana get when she's an arusa, so she could also mon chalitza when she's a yavama. Masha'inkan, according to the Ramban, that she can't mon a get when she's an arusa. So who adin? She can't mon chalitza when she's a yavama. That's what the Maggid Mishnah says in the next parak. That's benegeh this prat, and then that's benegeh whether she could mon chalitza. Now there's another din. He doesn't want to make yibum, and let's say they both decide. She doesn't want chalitza. She doesn't need yibum. She doesn't need chalitza. He's not interested in yibum. He's not interested in chalitza. But is there a mitzvah that he has to do either yibum or chalitza? So the Pashas Lashon Rambam is mitzvah asay min atera lachlitz imli ratzal yabim. Now the Rambam is saying it's talking about imli ratzal yabim. If he's a ratzal yabim and she's moning yibum chalitza, so then the reason why he gets chalitza is mitzad, not the mitzvah min atera lachlitz yabim, is because she could mon chalitza in order to be matira. She shouldn't be a skuk liyavam. But let's say he doesn't want to make yibum. So the Rambam says a mitzvah asay min atera lachlitz imli ratzal yabim. There's a chiyuv to make chalitza. And what happens if she doesn't want? In other words, she doesn't care. She doesn't need yibum. She doesn't need chalitza. So there's a machlekas about it. There's a chacham tzvi that says, Shuvas chacham tzvi that says that there's no chiyuv of a chalitza. No, this mitzvah menateda lachlitz, he learns the Moshe just like there's a mitzvah of gerushin. There's no chiyuv of gerushin. There's a mitzvah when a person is megarish, so he's megarish mitsefer, so he's doing the way the Torah says gerushin, but it's not a chiyuv. So if they both are willing not to have yibum, not to have chalitza, so that's beseder. But on the other hand, the cave, there's a sefer HaKev, it's on the Rambam that he tainas nishtazeh, he tainas that it's chlor, it tainas from Shuvas Harashba, that there's a chiyuv other to make yibum or to make chalitza. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to make yibum or chalitza. He brings a raya, the Gemara in the beginning of Yevamis, the whole sugi of Esed de Chalesasa, Benegeya, the din of yibum, that there's a musig of Esed de Chalesasa. So on that he's timing that if it would be an essa, which Lu Yitzur she'll say that she doesn't need, so then there's no essa. So l'chur such an essa, the Gemara says a ma'anis, that over there it's not an essa. No, there's the essa that the ma'anis should live with the woman that she was that with the night of psula that he was ma'anis, because if she says she doesn't want, so then it's not a mitzvah. So such a mitzvah, you don't see on such a mitzvah, which is possible that it shouldn't be a chiyuv, that there should be a esed dechalesha. So that's the Gemara in Ksubis. So al derech zeh, he tainas l'chura in Yevamis, over there, why is the Gemara speaking about esed dechalesha? So l'chura, it's possible that there shouldn't be an esed, out of yibam and out of chalitza. So from there, he brings a raya that there's a mitzvah saseh. It's not a saseh that if they want. It's a chiyuv taka to either do yibam or chalitza. It comes to be a machlekes. If the Yavam and the Yavama are both maskim not to do, not Yibum, not Chalitza, is there a mitzvah to do either Yibum or Chalitza? So according to the Chacham Tzvi, there isn't. And the Sefer HaKevetz, he brings a raya from Shuvas Harashba and from this Gemara that there is. Saying in Lashon Rambam, it sounds like mitzvah asay min atera lachlitz imlei ratzal yabim shenamar v'chol tanali v'gem. Mitzvah yibum kidam is the mitzvah chalitza. L'chatchila the mitzvah of yibum. And if he doesn't know mitzvah yibum, then there's a mitzvah of chalitza. Lefiza, you have to go back to that Maggid Mishnah that he's saying lei ratzal yabim is shalortza sahi ariza chalitz lo. So he was saying the reason why ariza chalitz lo is because she's moning chalitza. The Chura, there's a svara to say that he has a mitzvah. He has a mitzvah to do yibum or chalitza. Now he can't do yibum bal korko. So in Mela, there's a din of yibum, mitzvah to do yibum. You could do yibum bal korcha is kena, but you're not allowed to do yibum bal korcha. So Mela, if she doesn't want yibum, so now he has a mitzvah of chalitza. So I'm saying you could taina l'chura that this din of areza chalitza is not mitl Italia in this din that we learned before. Benigea Narusa, that she could mon. Knows the reason why Zareza Chelisla is mitzad the mitzvah of chalitza, or is mitzad her tvi of chalitza. Okay, maybe it's a little bit too barichus. Halacha, yeah. Mitzvahs yibum kedamas mitzvahs chalitza. Halacha gimel. Zeh shenamar b'teira ubein einlei. So that the chiyuv yibum is by bein einlei is echad aben ve'echad abas. Doesn't mean dafka ben. It's echad aben ve'echad abas, or zera ben or zera abas. Hail v'yeshli zera mikol makim. Bein mi'ishazu, that the one that he's married to now when he died. Bein mi'acheres is areza peter es ishtei min hachalitza min ha'yibum. Nafila hoyeli zera mamzer. That this child that he has is a mamzer. Oy evet kichav mazolos. In other words, he's not a child from an agoya, because a child from a agoya is not considered his child, like the Rambam is going to say soon. But over here it means he's a child that's right now is an evet kichav mazolos. He's a hishmatzach. Is nevertheless l'peil, since he has a child, is there is a peter is ishtei min hachalitza min ha'yibum. As long as he has a child, whether a child, a daughter, an enekol, no matter what matzav this enekol is, she's poter min hachalitza min ha'yibum. Aval b'nei min hashivchu min hakutis. If he has a child from a shivchu hakutis, is eine peter is ishtei. Shezer habo min hashivchi is avodim. V'abo min hakutis is kuti, means a goy. Ukilo einam. What's the raya? Because hareyu eimer, it says b'shivcha ha'isha v'yiladeh ti'el ladina. Is the chmolamed shevlo the kamesa. She has a din of a shivcha, doesn't have a din of the child of the boil. And also b'kutisu eimer, ki yoser is binches acharei. So meiser eisim yilechoshiv b'kol. Now over there in the pasuk, really it says that you're not allowed, you shouldn't take for your son a goya, and for your daughter a goya. No, you shouldn't marry of your son to a goya, and for your daughter you should marry to a goya. The question is, it says ki yoser is bincha machrei. So B'emes in Gemara, there's two ways of learning pshat and ki yoser bincha machrei. There's one way of learning pshat ki yoser is bincha machrei, means that this goy that your daughter is going to marry is going to get married to, so he will know, and then they'll have a child. So that child is going to be considered bincha, because he's a ben of a Yiddish woman. So in other words, his mother is a Yiddish. So Memela, so he's called bincha, and this goy, which is her husband, is Yasser, is bincha mi'acharei. So Ebazeh has nothing to do with what we're learning about over here. There's another way of learning ki Yasser is bincha mi'acharei, means that by your son, by a Yiddish man marrying a non-Jewish woman, so Memela, and then they're going to have a child. So his marriage to her is causing that this child, which should have been bincha, is not going to be bincha, because lepeil, since the mother is a goya, so Memela, the child is not a child. So ki yoser is bincha mi'achara, means that your son, which is the yid that married the non-Jewish woman, the kutis, so causes that bincha, this child, this enekolestis, which should have been a Yiddish child, is going to be mi'achara, is not going to be a Yiddish child. That's how the Rambam is learning, bringing according to that mandam. Bekutesu emer ki yoser is bincha mi'achrei. To say meiser eisei milichoshe bekol, through the fact that he married a non-Jewish woman. Afal, so a person has a child either from a goy or from a shivcha, that's not called a child, and his wife has yibum. Afal pi shenishtacher bein min shivcha. In his gayer bnei min hakutis. Already now this child is a Yiddisher. Aber von deswegen, it has nothing to do with him. Harein kishar geirim v'amushuchrarim. It has nothing to do with him. It's not his child. So it's a goyish child or a never that became a Yiddish. And even Haresha Hoyeli Ben Ben Ashivcha Shalei, he had a Shivcha, and he had a child from this Shivcha, and Vishichrarei, he was Mishacher aside the child, and Vishichrarei, and he was also Mishacher the woman, and Venosa, and Umezbel Izer. Is from deswegen Areze to Siyabim Lachiv. V'aval Pishet B'no Mimenu Kayim, Shekvar Shichrarei, Ukvar Shichrarei, some Geras. I'll call upon him, side this woman, her husband died, and she had a child with this husband, but she had the child with the husband when she was still a shivcha. And now she is a Yiddisher, and the child is a Yiddisher, and her husband died. Aber von deswegen, Lepel, she needs Yibum, even though she has a child with him. Because Lepel, this child is not his child. It's not the fact that it's her child is not negea, but the child is not his child. It's not considered his child. And Memela, so Memela, she gets yibum. There's yibum. There's a din yibum. I mean, the child is even what's the chiddush. L'chur, it's obvious. L'chur, sof kol sof, she was a shivcha. The fact that grada they have they have a child together, and grada this child is now a yiddish. L'chur l'mayin of kimina. I mean, there's a svara to say the Rambam brought earlier that there's those people that hold that b'chlal la shivcha, and he had a child. We nem on that he was mistama mishacher the shivcha first, and then he had the child, so the child is bam is his, and that was like hirchiku lechas when the Rambam benegeh the din of Eino the Meisi Bilas Nus. So not only Eino the Meisi Bilas Nus, but we assume that he was Meshacher the Shifcha. And the Rambam argued. So over here, the Chiddush is that even Lepel, right now, he was Meshacher the Shifcha. Taka Bepel. The question is that Igloi Milsa, that Be'emes the Shifcha was a Be'emes of Meshuchreres then as well. Al Kolpen, we say Shinsu was Becheska Shifcha. They had a child while she was a Shifcha. We name on that the child is a child of a Shifcha. And even though the child right now is a meshucher, but it's like a child, a ben shivcha that became a shukher. It has nothing to do with his father. Halacha hey, misha mes, v'iniach ishte mu'beres. Is imi pila achri meise. She was mapel the child was born, he wasn't alive. So the din is arezu tisyabim. Now, since lepel, even though she was mu'beres when he died, the child was never born. So Memela, so Arezu Tisyab. However, V'im Yotza Avlat Chai Laver Elam, is Afilu Meis B'Shor Shanela, right after he was born, he died. But Lepel, he came out Laver Elam alive. So the din is Arei Imei Pturim and Achalutzim and Ayibim. So on a Menatera Dika level, she's Pturim and Achalutzim and Ayibim, Kosov, the child, there was a child after he died. And he had a child. But the child died later. Abulepel, there was a child. Avol medivri sefer, but midrabanan. It's not enough that the child was yotzer chai laver elam. It has to be achi yevoda bevadai shekolu lechadoshav v'noilad letisha chadoshim mur. Only then do we name on that there was a child, that there was a live child after that this person had after he died, and Memela, and even if he died right away afterwards. So Lepel, there was a live child after he died. But if we don't know that it was Kol Chadoshav, so then Im Chai Shleishim Yem is a Rizavlat Kayom. So then we assume that he's a Latshal Kayom Upeter Nishayav Menachalitza Menayibo. However, V'mes B'tei Shleishim, Afilu B'yem Shleishim, Ben Shemes Micheli, Ben Shenafel Menagage Ochli Ari. So the din is a Sofik Nefel, Sofik ben Kayama, and therefore Tzricha Chalitza Medivri Sefer, Avoletis Yab. So it's Nochamal. Minatera, as long as the child was Yotze Chai, that's the way the Rambam says it, as long as the child was Yotze Chai, so the child is considered a ben Kayama, he was Yotze Chai. So this person, after he died, he died and there was a child after he died, so Memela, so the woman is Patim and Achalitza Menayim. If the child, that's minatera. But midrabanan, we say that if we know that kol chadoshav, the child came out alive, and we know that kol chadoshav, so then takashi's patim and achalitzim and ayibom. But if we don't know that it was kol chadoshav, so then it depends. If the child was alive for 30 days, so yatzim machlal nefel, so then she's patim and achalitzim and ayibom. Masha'enkin, if he wasn't alive for 30 days. So you can't make yibum because lepel menatera shidach patim menayibum nachalitza. So it's eishes actually mokam mitzvah. But on the other hand, she needs chalitza. That's midrabanan, she needs chalitza. That's the pashtus advarim where it says. V'emez b'tei hashleishim afilu b'yem shleishim ben shemes mechel ben shenafel menagag yochli ari is areza sofik nefel sofik ben kayama, and therefore tzricha chalitza m'divrei seifrim. So she needs chalitza. So in other words, basically, midrabanan we're saying that even though if the child was a nefel, so that's not enough to be poiter her minachalitzim and ayibim. So minatera, even though the child was, that's what it sounds like from the Rambam, the way you read the Rambam Pasha. Whereas minatera, as long as the child came out alive, even sof kol sof, the child was a nefel, so she's poiter minachalitzim and ayibim. Masha'enkin midrabanan, no, you need that it should be that you assume that the child wasn't a nefel. So if it was kol chadoshav, So you assume the child wasn't, and the child wasn't a nefil, and then she's the pot if we don't know that kol chadashev, so in order to establish that the child wasn't a nefil, you have to wait until they're shleishim yom, and only then could we is she potem and achalitz minayibum. This is midrabanan. It's not enough that she came out alive. It's stuff that he has to come out alive, even, and that he didn't end up being a nefil. That he didn't end up being a nefil. That's the way you read the Rambam Pashtus. I mean, the Maggid Mishnah adds over here that the Emes say that even in a Torah, if the child comes out, and we know that it was Lei Nigmaru Chadoshev, and also there's Lei Nigmaru Eivorav, there's simonim on the child that we see that the child is not a fully developed child. So even on Minatera Dika level, this child wouldn't be poitem and achalitz minayibum. It doesn't say this Mefurish in Rambam. But the Maggid Mishnah says this b'pshitos, that Shitas or Rambam, that in a tzir where he was late kol, we know for sure that it was late kol lechadoshev. And on the other hand, there was also this late nigmar eivarav and the simonim. So then the child has a din of ki'ilu he pila. That's called hipila. That's called hipila achar meisei. And memela, that child doesn't pater him in achalitzu minayibum. That's menatera chayiv b'chalitzu b'yibum. That would be menatera chayiv b'chalitzu b'yibum. That would be called hipila. When the child was neilat takalatisha chadoshim, so then even midrabanan, it's considered that there was a child ben kayama. If the child, on the other hand, was nigmur chadoshim, in other words, nigmur simonov, he had, it says nigmur evorov. He looked like a regular child, but we don't know whether or not it was neilat latisha chadoshim or not tisha chadoshim, or in a tzir. Or in a tzir where we know for sure that it didn't fit the Tisha Chadoshim. So b'chi agav na'am minatera dika level. So the fact that she has simonim is considered enough. That's minatera simonim is also enough. You don't need that it should be nigmur chadoshim. Simonim is also enough. This says the fact that the child looks like a fully developed child, even if you don't know that it was nil Tisha Chadoshim. The chiddush of the Rabbanan is that even in a tzir where the child was a fully developed child, but we don't know that it was nigmar chadoshev, so then we consider the child a nefil or a suffix nefil until it's around for 30 days. Is nachamo. This says minatera, if the child was born before 9 months, it was clearly born before 9 months, and it was clearly lei nigmar chadoshev, so then it has a din of a nefil, and the woman is mechuyev and yibum chalitza. And that's called hipila. That's actually hipila achar mesa. That's not called yotzo v'yotzav lat chay la'avarela. I'm saying what it says in the Maggid Mishnah. Masha'enkin, if the child came out and it was nigmar chadosh, nigmar eivarav, and the simonim, the child looked like a fully developed child, but on the other end, you don't know whether or not it was nigmar chadoshev or not. So b'chi hagavna, in such a case, so minatera, that child would also be considered a fully developed child. And therefore, the woman would be potem nachalitzu minayibum. Midrabanan, unless we know that it was nigmar chadoshev, so then we consider the child a suffix nefil, and therefore we have to wait 30 days. We have to wait 30 days. Halacha vav, mi sheyesh li ach mikol makom. As long as if a person has a brother, we're talking about the person that died, the brother that died. Yesh li ach mikol makom, afilu mamzer, evet kichav mazolas. This brother of his, either a mamzer, but they share the same father, or that person is a Eved Kichav Mazolas. Ben Kotten, Ben Godel, Mishiyotzer Reishi Verube Lavra Elam, Kedem Shiyomus Achiv, is a Reza Zekek. In other words, if a person dies without children and he has a brother, he has a brother before he died. If the brother was born after he died, that's not called a brother, which is Zekek, because Ishtel Yibum. So in other words, what does it mean he was born before he died? He was born, even if he wasn't fully born. It was only Yotzer Reishi Verube. The Gros says that Reishi should be Reishi Oirube, because normally Yotzer Reishi is considered already born. So maybe what's this Reishi Verube? So it's Reishi Oirube. There's a whole deal about this lashon of Reishi Verube. But I'll call upon, we had a brother that the brother was already had a din of being born. He was Yotzer Reishi Verube. So Memela, so that's called he has a brother, and that brother is Zekik as Ishtel Yibum. If the brother was born later, so that's not Zeki Kasishtu Libum, because when he died, this woman became an almon and she's muteres. So that's not any achiv l'chol dover l'dover min advarim, and therefore vein is ekikazishte. The fact that he has a brother, but this there's a biological brother, but Lepel, this brother of his, doesn't have a din of a brother because his father is not considered his father because he was a Baal Shivcha. The father was Baal Shivcha, and then the Shivcha, while she was Mu'beres, so she went ahead and she was Nizgayer. So this child was born Bigdusha, but that has nothing to do with the father. Lepel, this child is not a child of this father. Hail Bigdusha. They have to share the same father. Achim Noem is also Einam Chshuv Nachim. Ela la'avelus u'le'edus. As far as avelus is concerned, that there's a chiv avelus on an ach minoim. Now there's a psul edus. An ach minoim is pasul edus, and that's also only midrabar. Aval inyan Yerusha, ela inyan yibim chalitza, is a rehi kimisheina. No, it's not considered. Ach is yerish is achiv. If there's no children, that's only an ach mi'aviv, not an ach mi'aim. Then and so memela avalin Yerusha elin yibum chalitza, that a person is miyabim eishes achiv. So legabi yibum chalitza reim kimisheina shein achva elamiyav. The din of achim is only if they share the same father. The fact that they share the same mother doesn't give them a din of achim, not legabi yibum chalitza, and not legabi Yerusha. Since it's not that it's like the same, you're using the same din over here. Yeah, this has its din. So it's legabi Marshal, the din of Eishes Achiv, of the Isser of Eishes Achiv applies also Eishes Achiv Minaim. That's on a Deraisa level. Person is now let him marry Eishes Achiv Shlei b'Makom Mitzvah, so that would apply also to Eishes Achiv Minaim. So it does have a din of Achiv. Legabi this, there's a din. By Yerusha, you only Yarshin, your Achiv mi'aviv, your Achiv mi'aviv. Also, you have to understand that L'chur over there, of course, it's a din of Mishmush. It goes through the father. The whole din of Yerusha goes through the father, so that's why you can't yarshin a brother that you share the same mother. That's a separate Indian. By Yibum also, there's a din that it has to be from the same father. Al kol parm, the Rambam puts it together that Ba'atzam Achva is only Mino'af, and that's except Lavelus or Edus. Over there's a din of Achva Mino'im, but Achva is only Mino'af. That's why, but side by Yibum and Al Derel Zeh by Yerusha puts it together, these two dinim. Harein k'misheinam shein achva el manav. Halacha ches. Geirim shenis gairu, v'avodim shenishtachru. Even though they share the same father, ein lem achva klal. So now that they became geirim, so they don't have a din of brothers. V'harein kizonim zolazeh. I mean, b'negei avodim shenishtachru b'chlal. I mean, there's no din of yachas by an evet. There's no musig of a father by an evet. L'chur b'chlal. And Alder of Benegeh Gerim is Geir was saying they're kekot and sheneilat. I mean, a Gershon is Geir is an achas mutter to get married to his sister. So because they don't have a din of brother and sister. So Alder said they don't have a din of brothers. Va'afilu echad mem heirasi shalei bigdusha, v'leidasi bigdusha, v'hasheni is heirasi v'leidasi bigdusha. Is areim kizorim. They both have the same father. And the father was a yid. But one of them was Hirasi V'leidasi Bigdusha. So notice the father, the Yid, was Boal Imei when she was Nizgaira, after she was Nizgaira. And then the other child is coming from the same father that was Boal Imei before she was Nizgaira. And then she was Nizgaira while she was Mu'beres. So again, the same thing. They don't really share the same father. Because when a person was Boal on a Goya, so it doesn't have a din of his child, b'chlal. So the fact that biologically it's his child, but halachically has no din of his child, is areim kizor. Va'afilu tu'umim v'neildu bigdusha. So now it's hirasim shalei bigdusha, but they were neildu bigdusha. So we know for sure that they're brothers and it was the same father. But lepel, when the father fathered them, so their mother was a goya. So even though they were nailed to bigdusha, aim b'neim achva, asher tehei heirasim v'leidasim bigdusha, and then it's considered that they're brothers from the father. We'll put these in a pasha. Halacha tes. Mi shehayu leinoshim rabbi sumes is biyasa echalitzase shel achas mem piteres ashar. Ve'ene miyabim l'shnayim. Shnemar asher liyivna is beis achiv. So the din is bias echudu beina. Ve'ene beina shnei batim. So over here the Rambam says it, Ve'ene miyabim l'shnayim. The shaila is it a iser to miyabim l'shnayim? Or there's no chiyuv in liyabim l'shnayim. So behamshech over there we'll see, in halacha yud beis you'll see that vices the Rambam is learning, Ve'ene miyabim l'shnayim means there's no chiyuv liyabim l'shnayim. Ve'ene miyabim l'shnayim, shnem asher liyivna is beis achiv. Bias echudu beina, ve'ene beina shnei batim. V'chein, im hoyu le'achim rabim, is echetz me'am choylitz and miyabim la'achas me'yavonmis, v'yutru sharatzot. So if there's many women, so only one of them needs yibum chalitza, and if there's many brothers, so only one of them has to give to one of the women either yibum chalitza. Hoyu bivamis elu ksheris l'kuna psulis, is hoyu miyabim is miyabim le'ezishiyirtza. V'im hoyu chelitz is yachlis l'psula, kadesh l'yivsel saksheri l'kuna b'chalitza. So notice this. If you're making chalitzas, you'd rather make chalitza to someone that's already anyways psula l'kuna, not make someone that's ksheira l'kuna, psula l'kuna. Mesulei achim rabim v'noflu nishiseim l'fonav. There's three brothers. A person, let's say three brothers, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. And Shimon and Levi dies. And both of them die without children. So Reuven could be miyabim, say Shimon's wife and say Levi's wife. Im efshele liyabim is kulam, or there's many brothers. Im efshele liyabim is kulam, all the Yavamis. There's all the Yavamis from each bias, or one Yavama from each bias, is miyabim. V'imlav is chelitz kulam. A chelitz l'misha yirtzimem, miyabim misha yirtzimem. Achas mikol bias or bias. So from each bias, you only miyabim or chelitz one. But memela, each bias, if you're capable of being miyabim all of them, you're miyabim all of them, you're chelitz all of them, or you're miyabim some, you're chelitz some. Halacha yud beis. Hakenes es yivimtei, nesru tzarisa olov val sharachim. Vim bohu eyechad me'achim al tzarasa, is arei ze eva be'esa, shenam me'yavam me'yavi oleo. So we learn out v'lei olev al tzarasa, and v'lav abom me'klal esa esa. So again, like we said before, asher livna is beis achiv vaistois. That's the Eir Sameach says. The asher livna is beis achiv is not a lav. It means like shalim beisachim means there's no chiyuv. There's only bias echudu beina. Beina shnei batim. He's not mechuyev to be beina more than one bias. A shalim is beisachim. So there's only a chiyuv to be beina one bias. And over here we're saying another din that you're not allowed to be ba on the others. And someone that was miyabim, so he's not allowed to be miyabim any of the other tzaris or the sha'arachim. And here we're learning out from the pasuk yivam yavi Allah. So we learn now, and that goes say on the person that was miyabim and say on the other achim, because his yibum is like a bokeh from the other achim, is a lev al sarasa, and that's a lav abom klal esa. So there's a isa esa to go ahead and to be bo al sh'ar atzoras, say for him and say for the other brothers. That's been again if he was miyabim. V'chein hachelis liyavimtei. Is Nasra Chalutza he v'cholzer yiseh ala chelitz val sharachim, and bekulan asuras aleim medivri seifim kishneis. So the Rambam learns that the chiyuv, if someone was chelitz, to go ahead and to be miyabim, and to be bo either on the chalutza or on the sharat tzoros, is a issa midrabon. It's a issa medivri seifim kishneis. Now the question is lechura. The Ashzach is only with the Seifim Kishnis. So, in other words, the Gemara really says that we learn it now from the pasuk, Asher liyivna is beisachiv kivin shelibana shuv liyivna. So, Memela is like a limud from a pasuk. But the Rambam Vaisis holds that limud, that's what Maggid Mishnah says, that limud is only on asmachta, me'etzem it's only a drabanan. Those Asher liyivna is beisachiv is only teaching us that there's a chiyuv yibum only on bias echud beini. It doesn't have to be beini the sharbat. That's the chiyuv. That's what we learn out from Ashalivna's Beisachim. That's the pshat on Amenatera dik level. The kivin shabban shuv liyivna is only asmachta. The Ram doesn't even bring it. Masha'inkin, the Maggid Mishnah brings that. The Ramban holds no. The Ramban holds that someone that gave chalitza is not allowed to minatera to be bo on his chalutza, and aldera the shara acham are not allowed to be bo on the other soris. And why? Because of this pasuk Ashalivna is Beisachim, and that's a lav. That you're not allowed to kivin shli bona shuv liyivna, and that's tak a lav. So in other words, according to the Rambam, by But someone that was miyabim, there's an iser bia on the sh'ar tzoris, and that's an iser esa. Masha'enkin by chalitza, it's if he was chalitz, so it's only iser midrabanan. Masha'enkin, according to the Ramban, by chalitza it's iser lav. Asher liyivna shuv. This says over there it's taka iser esa. Yivam yavi alav le'alav al tzarasa. Masha'enkin by chalutza. So the tzaris, the other tzaris, or the chalutza itself, over there is a iser lav. Kivin shlibana shuv liyivna. Yeah. I'll call upon him. The kulan asuras alim the resevim kishnias. Now the question over here is l'chura. B'chlal we're talking about an eishes ach. So bishlema when there's a chiyuv mitzvah yibum, so it's an eishes ach. But mokem mitzvah the Torah was matter yibum. But over here we're talking about there was a rei chalitza. So l'chura there's no mitzvah yibum. So l'chura the problem of marrying the shara tzaras is not because say so the rabbanon or actually yavi olev al chavata. L'chura the problem is that it's a bia shaliv. It's a eishes actually mokem mitzvah. So on that the Rambam is Messiah. Shema achar shemes achiv b'lei vlad. The chnastalik iser erve me'al kol nosh. This is when a person dies without children, and there's a chi of yibum, so the iser eishes ach goes off. And memele, even when you're not being mekayim the mitzvah of yibum, because the mitzvah of yibum was niskayim already, but from deswegen the iser eishes ach went off. Lefichoch it tasted by makadushin kishneir. There's no iser because iser eishes ach is a iser erva. Mele wouldn't even be kedushin. Mashenkin over here, since the Isha Eishes Ach went off, so kedushin is tefes, and even though it's a Issa over here, the Rambam is saying it's a Issa the Rabbanon, Abul Peil, kedushin is tefes because it's only Issa the Rabbanon. Halacha Yud Gimel, Hachoylets Livimte is kshem shehi asura olav, is kach krevisa is also asura olav. So this is a din the Rabbanon, that the kroivis of the chalutza should have a din like the kroivis of his grusha. Just like if a person marries a woman and then he divorces her, so the din is that the kroivis of hers that he was usher when they were married remain usher. So over here also there was zika, and now he made chalitza. So the chalitza is al derav yaget. So memela we give her a din like the kroivis of gerushase, just like kevis gerushase is usher, the kroivis chalutzase is also usher. Achelis livimte, shem shehi asur olav, krach krevisa is also asur olav. Kigen imo ubita, v'chein hi asura lebnei Eliachiv. So it's also the same thing as if she would have been his wife. V'afilu shniya shala asur, kigen bas bita, which a person is not allowed to marry bas bita of his wife. That's a shniya. Bas bita is a erva. Mashenkin bas bita is a shniya. V'chein hi asura leben ben bnei. She has a din as if she was his wife. Memela, he has to deal with her craven as if they were his wife. V'chein imesi yevimte. This din we're talking about if he made chalitza to a woman. V'chein imesi yevimte, if she died v'adayin is kukale while she was kuka. So Mela comes out that she was huter histis through it's like almanase. In a certain way, she's like almanase. Is also b'kivisa kilo hoise ishte mesa tachtav. V'chol yisur meila midavreim. That's only benegeh the woman that he was actually choylitz. Masha'enkin amutal la'odam lisa aches tzoras chalutzase ushar krevisa. In other words, what about the tzoras krevisa and tzoras chalutzase? So his brother died. He left two wives. So the woman that he was choylitz, he's aser b'krevisa. Masha'enkin, the other woman, which was tzoras chalutzase, so he's aser b'tzarasa. That was the Isa the Rabbana the Rambam learns, the Isa midivrei seifrim. Masha'enkin b'negeh krevis tzoras chalutzase, that is not aser. He's not aser b'krevis tzoras chalutzase. While there's still zika, so he's takiyah aser b'krevis of all those noshim. But once there was chalit, like we'll learn about. Yeah, that's the next halach. Aser liyavam lisa krevas kukase. In other words, while there's still zika, he's not allowed to get married to any of the krevas of this kukase. Kigen ima ebita achi yabim echad mi echav lo, until one of the brothers marry is miyabim one a yachlitz lo, and then the tosser zikasim yala, and then his zika goes off. And the Isa imo ibita, let's say there's only one wife. A brother dies and there's only one wife. So none of the brothers are allowed to marry this wife's mother, sister. They're not allowed to marry. If one of the brothers goes ahead and makes chalitza or makes yibum with this yivama, so then the other brother is mutter bekrevas of this woman that he was once kukase, but now she's no longer kukase because she was nisyab either to his brother or she was nechlitza from her brother. So Mela now he's mutter bekreva of someone that was once kukase. Bekrevas kukase, he's aser. Bekreva of someone that was once kukase, he's mutter, as long as he didn't give her chalitza or she didn't die as being his skuka, being skuka to him. Not she didn't. Yeah, she didn't. She didn't die. She didn't die while she was skuka to him. Yeah. Nachamo. Aser liyavam lisa krevas kukasi came ima yibita. Hache yab echad me'echav lo. El yachlis lo, and then the tosser zikasi mi'ala. And once tosser zikasi mi'ala is yisa ima yibita. Ish arpi v'seh. Afal shen kulan asuris alachiv shechol yibum. The brother that actually made the chalitza of the yibum, so he's taka aser bekrevis chalitzose or bekrevis skukase or bekrevis of the one that he was miyam. That's obviously she became his wife. Kamesh biyan. Halacha tezvov. Hakoines es yivimte v'girsha is imrotza lahavze yavze mipnei she ki ishte lechol davar. So this woman, it knows if he gave chalitza to a woman, he's not allowed to marry her, and that's a din midrabanan. Masha'enkin, if he married her, he was miyabim her, and now he divorced her, so he could take her back. Even though now there's not going to be a chiyuv yibum, there's no mitzvahs yibum, no chiyuv yibum. But from deswegen, he's allowed to take her back because she doesn't have any chsarn of being eishes achiv. Halacha tezayin, kvar biyarna b'hilchas ishus. Ben Tesha v'yemechod b'yosibiyah. The davar ze alachem pi hakabal lefichach. Yavim cotton shebo al yivimtei is imhoye ben Tesha shana v'yemechod yikai. They should remain together. Aval eini cheletz, but to give chalitza he can't do ad sheyigdal v'yivdek. There is not enough that he should become a gadol b'shonim. You have to be boidik to find out that he has simonim. Sharei ish kosev beparshal in chalitza. So to make chalitza it has to be a ish. If he was less than 9 years old, his name biyasibiyah, so it's nothing. It's nothing. Biyas ben tesha shonim ein a koine kinyan gomor. It's a biyah, but it's not a koine kinyan gomor because he's not a gadol. Lefichach ein yevimte nitedis lezor ad sheyovi ola acha shehigdol. So in other words, if he was born la acha shehigdol, so then she becomes his wife, and then he can be mater with a get. Or he has to give her chalitza. Kameshi is born, but chalitza alone is not going to be enough because since he was already bola when he was a bentesha shana v'yemachod, so that din has a din like a mimer, like we'll learn, like a mimer begadol. A bias cotton bentesha has a din of a mimer, so you need a get to be matter the mamore, and also you need chalitza because there's still zikra. She didn't become his full wife, so since she's still a Yavam, in order for her to become mutter, she needs chalitza. But on the other end, since there was a bia, so Mamela she'll also need a get. That's been a get if he was a cut. V'chein hayavam aktana, imrotza hayavim liyavim mesim miyavim. So ben again miyavim, you could be miyavim hayavam aktana. Now that's a din of yibum natera. Aval ena chiletzes, but if you have a yavam aktana, to make chalitza, you can't make chalitza, over here the lashon v'afilu nivel is a shver lashon. So they learn v'afilu nechlitza. The point is that he did chalitza. Afilu cholza. But the nekudas advarim is we're talking about you made chalitza after she was 12 years old, but you don't know that she had simonim. So mele chalitza she has to be agdela. Is it v'afilu lashon? Va'afilu nechlitza acha shtei masishana is eina chalitza at shetibodik v'yimtze ba'asiman. Knows v'choishes, even though normally after the beishanim there's a chazaka derava that we say that she brought simonim, but nevertheless the din by chalitza v'choishes that maybe she wasn't a ben shtei masishana, so male it's not considered 100% the chalitza until she was nivdak, and we know for sure that she was a gdel. It's nachamol. Aktana, you could be miyab maktana. Bias ktana, you could be miyab maktana. Masha'inkin, to have chalitza with a ktana, you cannot have, and she has to be a gdela, and it's not enough that she's a bas yud b'shana, she has to be nivdaka to know for sure that she's a gdela. Halacha yudches. Shem shein hayovim cheletz at sheyasa ish, is kech ein hayavam cheletz at shetiyasa ish a gdela. The yovim cotton shabal yavam aktanis, even though the yovim cotton is not really a proper yibum, but the yovim cotton shabal yavam aktanis is yigdal azem, it's not a problem. But lepel, it's not considered a kinyan gomer until they become gedel, until he becomes a gadol. The main thing is that he should become a gadol. Halacha yutes. Hayivama leitis yabim v'lei tachlitz achetamtim tishim yem chutz miyem hamisa umiyem hamyibum umiyem hachalitza. Kishar kol anosh. So just like we learned in Hilchas Gerushin that a woman shouldn't get married to another husband, to another man after she got a divorce, or after she got Mrs. Habal, unless there's 90 days in between. In other words, besides the Yema Misa, besides the Yema that she gets married, there should be a 90 days. So al derez benegei yibum, between the Mrs. Habal and the yibum, there should be 90 days. Now the Chure, that explains why she shouldn't have yibum, because we want to mimafchen ben zera of the first husband and the zera of the second husband. We know exactly whose child it is. Masha'inkim benegei chalitza l'chura l'maynaf kiminach. I mean, if Lepel will see that she's muberes, so we have chalitza, and later on you'll see she's muberes, so we'll know that the chalitza was nothing. Let's be tachlis, and if we'll see later on that she's muberes, so and she'll have a child, so we'll know that the chalitza was nothing because there was no chiyuv yibum, no chiyuv chalitza. Mipnei she'ein royal yibum. V'namar im liyachbetz ish lakachas as yivimtei. So it says, if he doesn't want to make yibum, he should make chalitza. So we learn now, in a time when you can make yibum is elul chalitza. And that's a drash derabbanan, that you shouldn't make chalitza in a time when you can't make yibum. However, in yibum mesa, echolas b'teich hashleisha chadoshim is hail be'einu muberes. If lepel she wasn't a muberes, is harezul nifter of ein tzricha klum. No, the chalitza is a chalitza and the yibum is a yibum. Well, the chatchila yibum you shouldn't make because you have to have the chotche avchana, and chalitza you shouldn't make mitzadis limud that you don't make chalitza only when she's real yibum. Halacha chaf hachayletz liyivimtei v'nimtzas meuberes v'yolda is imhoyav vlad shel kayama. So it comes out lepel, this brother, he died with children, vlad shel kayama. Is arezu k'mishul einechlet tzlo me'elam umuteres lekuhuna umuter b'krevisa. It's a gloy Muslim afresh. He wasn't royal chalitza or yibum. Memelas the chalitza is nothing. The imhi pila, if she was mapul eishul isho shleishimim achar shanela, so memela al kolpon midrabonon, she has a din like she didn't have a vlad. So the din is chayzer v'chayletz lo. Who a echad mi'echad. So she needs chalitza again. Why? I look she already had chalitza. So because she chalitzas have muberes ain't a chalitza. The fact that she had chalitza while she is a muberes doesn't have a din of a chalitza. Or bias a muberes ain't a yibum. It has to be it has to be in a matzav that we know bein einla that there's 100% there's no child. Masha'inkin, if she's in a matzav of that it's not clear what her matzav is, she's a muberes, so then the chalitza is not a chalitza and the bia is not a bia. That's when I'm going to take it to level. Midrabona lepel the chalitza has it in chalitza, and therefore she's asura lekuhuna, and she's also you can't have a bia. You can't lechura right now. If the chalitza wasn't a chalitza, so let's say now he's mutter liyabim. No, he can't be miyabim because lepel once he made chalitza, you can't be miyabim. And even though the chalitza doesn't have it in chalitza, but midrabona has it in chalitza. So chalitza of a muberes doesn't have a din of chalitza lahatir. And therefore, she needs chalitza again. Lefichach, hakenes yacheles livimte hamuberes is late tinosi tzaros achetelezu. If there's two, the brother died and he left two wives, and one of them is muberes, and one of them is muberes. So now the yavam went ahead and he was miyabim. Let's say he was miyabim or cheletz to the muberes. So the chud tzara can make a cheshbon manavshach. If the child will be born, so it comes out that there was never a zik over here, because the child is born, the child will be born, a ben kayama. And if the child won't be born, so she had chalitza, she had yibum, so l'chura she's muteres. So So we say no. The late Tzirasa Achetelezu. Why? Because Lepel, the fact that she had Chalitza or Yibum, that doesn't have a different Chalitza and Yibum to Pata the Tzara. And also, Aylachura, she could say, but Pashtus, the child will be born, and Memela, so Memela will be mutter. So on that, the Rambam is Mamshech, She'ein Avlad Mater at She'etzel Avarela. In other words, for the Vlad to be matter, for them to be getting married, is only after the Yotzel Avarela. In other words, even though the pale Mamish, the child will be born, and at that point in time, it will be Nizgala, that he died with children. But on the other hand, the heter starts after the child is born. After the child born is the heter starts. So even though Lepel, we said before that the chalitza wasn't a chalitza. Legabi that we say the chalitza wasn't a chalitza. But legabi that the tzara should be muteres l'shuk. That's only after the child was born. If the child was born, so then you're muteres l'shuk. Mashenkin, before the child is born, she's not muteres l'shuk. Halacha chav beis. Hakoinus is yivimtei. V'nimtzas mu'beres. Mu'beres from the rishon. Is mafrishin eison umamtinola. Imi pila. So as a child was never born, so it comes out she's a proper yavama. Is yazavikai because if there was a chalitza, he wouldn't be able to be makayim. But over here he was kindness as yivimte. So Memela is yazavikai. However, v'im yolda afilu mes b'yem shenelad. So on one hand, we look at her that she got married. In other words, the bia was considered a bia of kedushin. On the other hand, could be she's a skukaliyav. She's kukaliyav. So Memela, there wasn't really a musig of kedushin. So in other words, it's like a suffix. In other words, minat teira be'emes, since the child was born, so Memela, she's really not a yavama. She's not a yavama. So maybe she's not a yavama, so l'chura the get, even though she wasn't royally yivam, but the bia was considered like a bia's kedushin, so she needs a get. On the other hand, midrabanan, since the child wasn't alive for 30 days, so it's like as if she died without children, as if he died without children. Memeli need chalitza. So that's it. The im yolda. Afilu mes b'yem shenelad is hareza mitzia get. B'tzad the bia she needs a get, and also the chelasla because it's possible she has it midrabon. She has a din of a yavama since the child wasn't alive for 30 days. So it's keilu he died without children. So male she has a din of yavama and she needs chalitza. That's talking about if she was Yolda and it was Mes Kedim Shleishim Yem. However, in the Skayim of Lat Shleishim Yem Achashanela, so then is Ariz of Lat Shel Kayoma, Ve'in Atzrichim Memena Get, Mipnei Shehi Ervolo. So in Mela, so there was no kedushin. There was no kedushin because she's an erva, and on the other hand, she obviously doesn't need chalitza because she's not a. He died with children. There's a Vlad Shel Kayom. Yeah. Is nachamal. So a person that's kindness is yivimte. So if he pila, so memela, so she's a regular yavama, memela he could be chayzev a kindness. That's the din. Mafrish pila is yazav yikayim. Ve'im yolda. So then, so if the child dies before 30 days, so she needs saya get and saya chalitza. But if the child remains alive for 30 days, so then we consider a child shel kayama, so there's no kedushin over there, and the bia is not a bia of a kinyan, and therefore he is. There's nothing. There's no need for a get, and there's obviously no need for chalitza or chalitza. Halacha chav gimel. She's an erva. Halacha chav gimel. Yoldo la'achar shisha chadoshim mishnis yabma v'lat shel kayama. So we're talking about the case. He was kenes yivimte. And Lepel, it was Kenesis Zivimte before was Hooker Ubra. And Lepel, here, in the first case, it was Nimtzas Muberes, she was Muberes Larisha. Now she was Yolda Lacha Shisha Kadoshim, and we don't know whose child it is. Is it the child of the brother that died, or is it the child of the brother that was Kenesis Zivimte? That's the child. Now, if it's the child of the brother that died, so obviously, this second brother, it's a Sa'ishis actually b'makam mitzvah. There's no art for Yibam over here. There's no art for Yibam over here. It's a erva. Masha'inkin, if it's the child of the second brother, so in other words, so he was taken miyabim, and it's his child, and Memela, so he's married to this woman. She was miyabim, he's married to her. So he doesn't know. He doesn't know if he could continue in this marriage. He doesn't know if she's a Eishis actually b'makam mitzvah or it's his wife. So Memela, she needs a get. she needs a get. He has to get divorced because he doesn't know what it is. And obviously, she doesn't need any chalitza because Manavshach, either she's, if the child is the child of the first one, so Memela, so the child, so there was never a zika, and if it's his child, so he made yibum. He made yibum. So that's the deal. Yol delacha shisha chadoshim mishen nisyabma v'lat shel kayama is a reza avlat sofik and mentishul rishon meshiv alachrin lefichach yetzi beget. He has to be yetzi beget because he doesn't know. In other words, if it's his child, so it comes out that he was miyabim Eshes Achiv, and she became his wife, and he has a child with her. Mele, he has to have a get. He can't continue living with her because there's a suffix. Maybe it's the first one's child, and it's Eshes actually b'makom mitzvah. V'avlat kosher, the Vlad is kosher b'manavshach. If it's the first one's child, it's a kosher of Vlad, and if it's the second child, it's also a kosher of Vlad. After she had the child, he was again bo'aleh. So then habonim sheveu achra v'sofik mamzerim. Because if the first child is the first brother's wife, so is the first brother's child, so it comes out that she's a Eshes Ach Shlei B'makom Mitzvah. And Eshes Ach Shlei B'makom Mitzvah is a erva. So Mela, when he's born, Eshes Ach Shlei B'makom Mitzvah. So the child is a mamzer. Over here we don't know. Because we don't know whose child it was. So Mela, it's a Sofik mamzer.